Hey guys, I was listening to a person talk today that stimulated some thoughts and responses in me, and I thought I'd make a quick video and hopefully I can articulate these things. Um, this is regarding women in relationships. So, um, a couple of our core, out of our six core needs, two of them are for certainty, and also uncertainty, right? If you take any of this to an extreme, too much uncertainty, you're in like a war zone, a constant state of stress, maybe panic, maybe not panic, but like it's very stressful and you don't know what to expect from moment to moment. One of the things that I always found, there's certain kids stories and I found them disturbing, right? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. They go through all these different things, and there's all this certainty, and the situations change, the settings keep changing, and yeah, there is an overall storyline, but at any moment, all this random thing, this new thing can happen that has no connection to what's happened before in the story, and so I just really didn't. I never really liked that story. Um, there's another example I had a second ago in my head. And Alice in the Looking Glass. She goes down the rabbit hole into this other world. She does things. She gets real small. She gets big. She does all these things, but meets these different characters. But there's not much continuity in there, right? I mean, Alice or yeah. So that lack of continuity was disturbing to me as a kid. I never well, okay, whatever, but I never really liked the story, and so that's me wanting more certainty and less uncertainty. But we need both, right? Have complete total security, continuity. You know exactly what to expect. Let's say you're locked up in prison in isolation, and it's the same thing every day, every hour. Some bad meal arrives at a certain time of day, right? That's pretty much total certainty. You know exactly what's going to happen that day, chances are. Not that, right? Assuming you're in isolation, you're pretty much left alone. That's extreme certainty, right? And that's basically like a prison, right? You're so different people have placed themselves differently on the level of uncertainty versus certainty that they like or that they choose for themselves. I used to be, with my parents' influence, much more security based in terms of, don't take these risks, don't do this, play it safe all the time, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until my early 20s that information came along that helped me. Wait a second, this is just the programming from my upbringing, and I could change this. I could choose differently. And I did stuff like skydiving and things that were way outside my comfort zone, way outside what I was familiar with, because I was realizing I don't have to always make the safe choice. I can choose different things. So I was more on this extreme, more towards the certainty ends of things, and a lot of people will get a job, a 9 to 5 job, a corporate kind of job, or whatever job. They want that certainty of the paycheck and things like that. Well, realizing that corporate job doesn't necessarily offer security, right? You could lose that job in a heartbeat. That security in the material sense of the world, you could get run over by a car, whatever. It doesn't. You're maybe seeking it, but it doesn't ultimately exist. It doesn't ultimately exist. It can sort of exist. You can have a higher percentage chance of being able to predict what's going to happen to you that day, but the nature of life is to be dynamic and all of that. So I, work for myself. I'm not another person. I don't have a fixed income, and there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with that. And the little kid me that wanted more security, wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing today. And I live in a decently high degree of uncertainty, and there's some stress that goes with that, to be sure. But I'm choosing that like setting on the spectrum of certainty versus uncertainty. And so all of us will gravitate to something. Now, what I want to talk about is women, if the father in your life, if he was either absent fatherlessness or abusive in some way, maybe neglectful, distant, emotionally distant, uninvolved, things like that, that sets you up to have certain unmet needs and have a heightened kind of compensation method for that. I'm going someplace with this. Hopefully, I can get it out in language. Um, Now, if you had an actively abusive or narcissistic type father, narcissists are controlling. You exist for their stimulation, well being, what they can get out of you. It's a very selfish kind of taking relationship. But what a narcissist will often do is they'll play you on these opposites. They will kind of like a Hegelian dialectic of opposites, but they'll push sometimes, pull sometimes, they'll move towards you at sometimes, they'll move away from you sometimes, and they will maybe show appreciation for you when it strategically suits their selfish purposes, and then they'll ruthlessly criticize you at other times, right? So, however those look in the very specifics, you're built up and you're torn down. You're built up, you're torn down. You're built up, you're torn down. You're welcomed, you're rejected. And this tug goes back and forth. And the what I'm talking about right here, there's many. I guess there's there's many things we could talk about. But what I'm thinking about right now that I want to talk about is that's a high degree of uncertainty. Or if you have the alcoholic father, right? So, dad comes home. Who am I going to get tonight, right? Is it going to be the angry dad? Is he going to, whip me with his belt? Or is he going to, is he going to be the nice dad? Or is he just going to come home and ignore me and fall asleep in the recliner? There's all these different scenarios. But the result is a high degree of uncertainty. You don't know what you're going to get. Who is daddy going to be right now or tonight? Or whatever, right? And so also it happens also a lot with narcissists. Who am I going to have to deal with, right? You can't count on your dad to be one way. So obviously the extreme of that is somebody's being just utterly boring, utterly locked into routine, no variation, and that lets you know what to expect, but it's completely boring to you. The other extreme, and we live somewhere between these extremes, right? The other extreme is, right, in multiple personalities, and he's just like, who knows? Who knows what you're going to get? And so, when a woman has grown up in any one of those scenarios, the alcoholic dad, who am I going to get? Is he going to be drunk? Is he going to be passive? Is he going to be mad? Is he going to fall asleep? Is he going to molest me? Is he going to attack me? Is he going to beat my mom? There's a lot of stress, and that stress results from, your physical way and sexual well-being may be at stake, right? But it also results from constant uncertainty. Who am I going to get today? And that undermines the kids, any kids, boy or girl, their sense of development, of security, robs them of a sense of well-being, and it's very disturbing. Right. So knowing that your past sets you up to gravitate toward a certain thing, a certain amount of certain stimulation, literally neurological stimulation, but it can be emotional stimulation, that it can express itself as emotional stimulation. So let's talk about if you're meeting a guy and it's the first time or two just meeting, right? You don't know each other well. Typically, a woman is going to have running through, does he like me? Does he not like me? What does he like about me? She's looking for what she can count on back from that man. And there are men who consciously manipulate women doing that. And there's tons of manipulative women too, okay? But neediness will always tend to try to control, and one method of attempting to control obviously never works long term is being manipulative and controlling and playing mind games with the person. So in those initial first few times of meeting a guy, your senses, your radar is out there. Like, what? How do I? What do I expect from this guy? How is this guy gonna behave? Um, what do I calibrate to? And is it a match for what I want and what I feel? Do I feel good about myself around this guy? Do I feel safe around this guy? Do I feel like wild and crazy around this guy? Whatever it is, right? So, something I wanted to say. Let me focus here. Uh, so knowing this, right? So your childhood may have set you up to be, I'm going to call it emotionally starved for something. Maybe it is that kind word. Maybe it is that kind touch. Maybe it is when you talk and the man, you feel he's actually listening to you. Now, we all want this, but you may have a heightened need for it, and you may be emotionally starved for that. So just realize and confess, right? My mustache is itching today. Sorry for all the I don't know why, but you may be starved for certain things, and that's understandable given where you've come from or given the encounters with men you've had, most importantly your father early on. Just realize, is that setting me up to seek after abuse? Is that setting me up for damaging and unfulfilling relationships? Because a narcissistic man is gonna zone psychic radar, whatever you want to call it, and cults do this too, right? Love bombing, right? They show you all this acceptance, love, attention, and what is that going to do? That's going to make a person feel good about themselves. They feel accepted. They feel free to express themselves. Whatever they are expressing or whatever, there's a lot of approval. They're not being criticized and condemned or whatever. Who's not going to want that? Obviously, if you do that to this over-sickening degree, a healthy person is going to say, okay, that's enough. You guys are a little weird because this is extreme. I don't need constant reassurance. But maybe you are the person who never got the assurance from your father that you needed. And so you're starved for it. And so you are set up. And therefore you're susceptible to an abusive man who plays the charming card, right? Kind. The things that are going to especially look like love, particularly to you, particularly to where your unmet needs are. So realize what needs you have, why you probably have them. Is there neediness in you that's pretty extreme? Why is it extreme? Is there an instability in you that's extreme? Why is it particularly extreme instability? So what sets you up for it? And it could be setting you up for that narcissistic type of abuse, that thing that's going to make you feel loved and then withdraw from you, and then you're like confused and you're hurt and what did I do wrong, and then you try to all the harder to make the relationship work. Well, that's what the narcissist wanted, evil manipulators that they are. And now you're trying harder and they're just like moving the marker back of acceptance and you're chasing that marker of acceptance. You're hungry for it. You do need acceptance. It is a legitimate need in you, but you may be pursuing that need with a horrible strategy. Get it from this guy. Well, this guy is a narcissistic abuser. It's one example. Wanted to throw that in. Continuing here. So, certainty versus uncertainty. So, what it sets a woman up for is heightened degree of compensation in her later years. So one version of a pattern of which women can run is teens, 20s, whatever. They go after the bad boys because the bad boys are more exciting all through their 20s. And maybe this is a very broad pattern, may or may not apply exactly to you. All right. And then in their 30s, they decide they want to settle down. So very broad. In their 20s, they're more pursuing excitement, which they're going to call fun. But it's stimulation to the nervous system. So this not knowing what you're going to get from your core relationship with your father, you're then set up to, you still need security and you need uncertainty, okay? You still need something new, something fresh, something vibrant, something flowing. So then in their 30s, that they get tired of that didn't provide fulfillment, and they bounce into the opposite. The pendulum swings the other way. What I'm saying is, you don't end up living a balanced life. You end up sometimes running in this direction and then sometimes running in this direction. Oh, certainty, certainty, certainty. Oh, uncertainty, uncertainty. And it's a zigzag pattern through life, and that's kind of a messy way to do things. So by chasing one, you're not getting the other. So anyway, so then in their 30s, they want the security, they want to settle down, they want to get a guy. And then, so they settle with a guy who's safe, who's less wild and more predictable. And that goes on for a while, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And then a lot of these women, I'm talking about American culture here in the 21st century, then they divorce that guy because he's boring. And they flip back to something with or they buy into all the lures. Oh, but you could have had this guy, or what about that guy, or whatever. And they play the what if game in their minds, and they're chasing after something elusive. And so what you want, the core design of woman is, you want to be known, understood, welcomed, cherished. You want to be experienced by the man as delightful. So by the pendulum swinging either this approach to a relationship or that approach to a relationship. It could be a casual relationship, a serious relationship, a short relationship, a long relationship, any and all relationships, okay? Especially with men. So they may have that very secure relationship, which is what they said they wanted, which is what they committed to, which is what they married. And then it doesn't provide the excitement, the drama, the whatever. So women who've had that higher degree of uncertainty, especially specifically, particularly from their father, have a tug of war going on inside them, right? We all have this in the sense of we need certainty and uncertainty, and these are opposites. And so there's a tension between the two, okay? But it's heightened in them. So just pausing to gather my thoughts here, because it's not all calculated out and written out in outline form. What I wanted to say about that is this. The nervous system is set up for a high degree of stimulation, right? You're in a war zone, a combat zone, bombs are going off, your friends are getting killed, you're trying to run, you don't know what's going to happen from minute to minute, your life could be over. That's a very high degree of uncertainty, right? That's extremely stressful. That can mess people up. That's so stressful. You grew up with some degree of that. Maybe your home was a war zone. Maybe what's going on in your head is a war zone. And so your nervous system, this is it, your nervous system is calibrated to a high degree of uncertainty, a high degree of stimulation, let's say it like that. So even though you crave something more solid, something more secure, I know who I'm going to get when I interact with this guy, your nervous system is so used to having to respond to this barrage of different things thrown at you, your self-esteem being bolstered, your self-esteem being torn down. Oh, I want you. Oh, I don't want you. Oh, and this interplay of opposites, that when you have something good, and I'm not saying the boring guy who's stable but very boring is good, okay? But let's say you have a truly good man, a guy with character, integrity, who follows through on what they're going to say, who's reliable, and truly is looking out for your best interests. Okay, let's say that. You may say, oh, that doesn't exist anymore. Oh, that's hard to find. Whatever you say about that. even if you get that, you'll tend to reject it. It's what you want and you're attracted to it, but you're also attracted to the bad boy, or really the abusive man, because the abusive man provides what? Familiarity, right? The one where you don't know what you're going to get when you encounter him. Is he going to be nice to me or mean to me? Is he going to draw me in or push me out? That's what your nervous system is calibrated to. That's what your nervous system is expecting. So you're going to find somebody who's faithful to you, somebody who's true to you, somebody who follows through on what they say, somebody who shows up when they say they're going to show up. Your nervous system is wanting more drama, just out and out more drama. So regardless of any predisposition, pre-existing, less emotional stability to begin with, now on top of that, that's compounded by you're used to having drama with the man, initially your father, and you're used to either not getting what you want and feeling sad, or, oh, he threw me a tidbit of love, oh, thank God, I'm so starved for it, and things like that. And so that sets a woman's heart up to the push-pull within her. She operates in a push, and that maybe have done to her, especially if she had a narcissist. She tends to do that with a good guy, and a good guy is not going to put up with that. Is going to probably, again, these are generalities, probably walk away from that. And so she's left eternally unfulfilled. This is what I'm saying. So if people would realize, I grew up in such and such way, my relationship with my dad was such and such way, what I could expect from my dad is this, this, and this. What I can count on him to be is this, this, and this, and this, and this. Who he was for me is this, 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 and this, and this. If they get clarity on how their own nervous system is calibrated, security versus unsecurity, certainty versus uncertainty. You know, are you wild and crazy? You're going on adventures and rafting trips and go just, let's go visit this foreign country and just with only a backpack, you know? Or do you have to bring the whole tent and camping gear and servants and a tent? You know what I'm saying? So we all live somewhere in there, and it's not just one thing. That thing can change. What I'm talking about is that you can now consciously choose. So you're not living life in a reaction mode, which is, I say, is not true living, right? That's just reacting, not living. You are now actively choosing. And then knowing what's going on with yourself, you can communicate that to those that you're in a relationship with, you know, and maybe you decide, well, this guy is ultimately too boring and I don't want a long term with that. Or, oh, this guy's too wild and crazy, you know. People who do drugs, right? Very unstable. They will usually lie, cheat, steal, say anything to get their next fix. Again, there's no one brush that describes everything. Okay, let's admit that, right? But these are common patterns. And so there's a high degree of uncertainty, a high degree of drama, a high degree of instability. So if your own dad was unstable in that he had an addiction, alcohol, drugs, whatever, other women, whatever, if your dad was a narcissist and used the predictable build you up, tear you down, I approve of you, I don't approve of you, I'm drawing you near, I give you praise, I give you criticism, acceptance, rejection, and it's all a game to him just to stimulate you to feed off of your emotional drama, then you're set up to want that because that is familiar to you. And familiarity is what? Certainty. So we're all trying to get our need for certainty versus uncertainty, right? You get in the shower, you may not want the hot water on full blast. Maybe you do. You probably don't want the cold water on full blast either, right? You want a balance between the two somewhere, wherever you tend to like that. So likewise, you need a balance between certainty and uncertainty. You may be chasing certainty and end up with somebody completely boring because you're desperate for that. They're predictable, you know. At least I know what I'm going to get with them. At least he comes home on time, or however that works out specifically. At least he picks up the phone when I try to call him, something like that, right? He's there for me when I need him. If you've got somebody that's might not be there for you, it can be emotionally addicting. You can get addicted into a relationship that if your father was distant, maybe this person is distant. Even though it's the exact thing you hate, the exact thing you consciously want to avoid, if you're not conscious about it, then you're unconscious about it, then you're unconsciously gravitating to, even though you don't technically really want it, you're gravitating to what's familiar to you, which is an unreliable man, a man that keeps you guessing as to what he's going to do, guessing as to who he's going to be towards you, and all of these things. And so this is just said to realize that all of us are trying to meet our core needs. Even the narcissist, in damaging and very screwed up ways, is still trying to get his need for self-importance met, maybe in sick ways, maybe in ways that hurt himself and hurt other people. There's always a positive intention behind behavior, at least to that person, a perceived, right? Perceived, I'm helping myself. Even if a person is abusing themselves, cutting their wrists, whatever, maybe it's getting attention. Maybe it's just like, I feel so numb and dead and I just want to feel something, even if it's pain. There's always a positive intention to behavior. You're trying to get something. And it all goes back to getting these 6 core needs met, that we're not going to go into the 6 core needs here. We're just focusing today on certainty versus uncertainty. And your nervous system will get habituated. It will get calibrated to a certain level of certainty versus uncertainty in your life. And you may gravitate to the same patterns in men that you say, well, this is not what I want, or this is what my ex did, or this is what, and in some ways they look different, but in other ways, the beingness of the relationship is the same, because you're meeting your need for certainty. Even if that certainty is, he stresses me out, I don't know what to count on from him, it causes me pain, he's not appreciative, or emotional abuse or any kind of behavior, right? So I guess that's what I want to say. If you just realize how you grew up and realize what I'm saying here is that the result of that, however it was that you now gravitate toward a certain thing. Part of you is always going to gravitate to what's familiar to you. Even if that is unsafe, even if that is stressful, even if that is not good for you. So part of you will always crave something new, something fresh. Realize what's driving your behavior. Realize what's going on in any of your relationships with men in any capacity. What need are you trying to get met? The more conscious you are of that, not neurotically self-analyzing yourself every second. It's not what I said. I said being just conscious and aware of it. What need am I trying to get met here? Oh, that puts you in a place now to wait a second, pause on this track. Okay, do I want to keep going down that track, or do I want to, I like that mostly, but I want it just a little bit over here, or do you, no, hell no, this is the same dumb thing I keep doing. I want to go way over here, right? That's going to be better for me. You can make conscious choices instead of gravitating to things, and I'm talking about mostly the context of bringing the emotional continuity of you and your dad into whatever relationship with whatever man, a teacher, somebody you're dating or married to, or any relationship like that. Ask yourself and let yourself change over time. I don't mean in some erratic, extreme, unstable version, but at different stages of your life, maybe you do need more, right? Obviously, if you're pregnant or have kids, you need more certainty around you than if you're single without kids, right? There's more needs around you and more lives that are dependent on you, food, shelter, blah, 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 right? So that's really what I want to say. Just be conscious and realize that your nervous system may be calibrated to drama. Your nervous system may be calibrated to your relationship with the guy may be going great, and then you find yourself starting fights with him just to like spice things up and liven things up because emotionally you're bored. Why? Because you're like your stomach, right? A baby simple analogy, right? If you always eat a ton of food and always get extremely full after meals, your stomach stretches and it's now calibrated to a meal of whatever size, this size, right? And then you can change that through fasting, through, really basically through fasting or eating very minimal, and gradually then your stomach will shrink and it will get calibrated to wanting a meal of a smaller size. So likewise, instability, drama, whatever, you may gravitate to the guy who gives you a degree of uncertainty, and the young you, the 20, teen, 20, 30 something, may feel that, experience that. It may occur to you as excitement, but is it? Is it really excitement, or is it just like you're used to having a such and such degree of uncertainty in your life? So once you realize it, you're in a better place to choose, something I've already said here. So please bring this before God. Ask him to show you any unhealthy patterns of relating, of relationships, of picking relationships. You may be the one who's erratic in reaction to that. You may push towards other people and then suddenly withdraw from them. You may ping pong back and forth, right? I say ping pong because ping pong is a decently fast game. So it happens quickly, like you're changing modes. You may change modes, but change modes a lot slower, right? So there's pacing, there's leading, there's responding, there's initiating. But if you find yourself starting arguments, issues, tensions with the man in your life or the men in your life, consider this, that it's probably because your emotions are calibrated to, and your emotions, not meaning something totally vague, I mean the literal amount of neurons firing off that are connected to emotions that may be connected to deep matters of security, feeling like I'm okay, feeling like I know where my next meal is coming from, feeling like this man is going to be there for me, or I have to do these. Maybe you're insecure and you feel like you have to do these things that don't feel like the real you in order to just please him and keep the man around. Well, that's operating from neediness, from drama, from insecurity, from unmet needs. Now, given how you grew up, what kind of father you have, okay, you may have unmet needs and there's no way around that. Obviously, with all of these things, we ultimately bring them to God, who is faithfulness, who is truth, who is everything that we should want. But often, right, so this will play into everything. This will play into your relationship with God, of course. God may come to you and go, God, I kind of want some of you, but then I want to sin on the side. Consider the component of that dynamic of coming through, but also backing off. I'm attracted towards, but then I'm pulling away. It results in a person who's very self-contradictory, and that results in a self-defeated life in a more extreme version. Realize this, that just like a stomach could be calibrated to a size. I'm saying it like that because, okay, it's simply a fact. Your stomach is the size that it is, and if you eat lots of big meals, your stomach will adapt and it will get bigger. And so there's not a lot of moral drama around that. There's not a matter of condemnation for that. Society may think you're skinny or fat and have its opinions on it, but I'm talking about just your stomach itself. Your stomach is matched. It matches itself to the size of meals that you're eating, right? Not in a day, but over a time. I don't know, a month, 2 months, something. 3 months. I don't actually know physiologically. But it will adapt over time if you constantly give it one thing, right? If you tend to wake up at a certain time, your body's calibrated to wake up. at that time? Well, emotionally, you are calibrated to something. I invite you to explore what it is you're calibrated to. Are you calibrated to seek after abuse, to seek after a man who will always leave you, to seek after somebody who doesn't appreciate you, I'm inviting you to notice whatever's negative in that, not to fixate on the negative or obsess on the negative or become neurotic about the negative, but to say the truth of the matter. Oh, of course my stomach doesn't feel full until I have 8 burritos because that's what I've been doing for the past year. You know what I'm saying? So in the same way, well, of course, I had a guy who might be on me or who might be there for me or might not be. He was cheating behind me, or the other extreme, he's so boring. I feel now he's clingy. There's all of this stuff, but take a reading of yourself, right? See where you fall on this spectrum. That's why I'm waving my hands back and forth, the spectrum of certainty versus uncertainty. And realize, is that what I really want? Okay, my childhood may have set me up to seek after such and such, whatever such and such is. The abusive guy, the guy that's really tall, the guy that shouts at me. So chances are you're pursuing a guy who gives you emotional stimulation, but that can be healthy or unhealthy, right? Maybe is that guy running push-pull things on me? Is he consistent? Is he untrue? Is he whatever? And yet, I'm not saying go after stagnation. I'm not saying go after boredom. I'm saying take a look at that and go, okay, that was my past. My past set me up for these kind of patterns, these kind of attractions. This is what I'm gravitate to. But now I can choose. Even though I've got way big this history of making another choice. What's familiar to me has been this, and this. Now I want to consciously choose something. And give yourself freedom to choose something different. Not different for the sake of different. Not just don't leave your stable marriage and go after something wild and crazy. We know both men and women who've done that, who just husbands who've walked out on their wife and their 3 kids and done something wild and crazy, turned gay, turned whatever it is, moved to a different place, right? They were probably fed up with the boringness, the predictability, the demands on their life or whatever, and they wanted something fresh. Well, guess what? If you're conscious about who you are, what you do, why you do it, then you can make conscious choices, and then you two can create together the kind of future that you want, not the kind of future that your past has set you to keep reacting into creating over and over and over and over again. So, I think I've said it. I think I've spelled it out. God bless you.